And it seems to me that the central difficulty of paradigms in sociology is that you start your life by learning your language, by inferring from context. Nobody reads a dictionary to a baby. And they have to figure out from when their mother talks about nursing or whatever word. Families always invent words for nursing that because it, in some sense, isn't a public property. So context is the whole of learning language. If you start from that premise, your paradigm has to be one that sort of has fuzzy edges, and actually, when you study it in detail, the sun has fuzzy edges too, but physicists never worried about that till lately. And then when they did, they had a good paradigm to go into it. But it seems to me that we need lots of little paradigms. Right? I mean, the phrase of detachable conclusions. It seems to me Chuck Tilley talks about the problem of writing the last chapter as one of creating detachable conclusions from the complexity of history. And it seems to me that that's the general problem we're in. We need little bitty paradigms that are what James S. Coleman used to call sometimes true theories. And the sometimes is a matter of the context, and consequently, now it seems to me that that problem is especially intense in figuring out the sociology of law. What is it that actually happens to the context of a piece of law when it is decided by an arbitrator that works for the same corporation that's being sued? Okay, that's a paper I listened to today, and that's the typical kind of problem we now confront, and you can't have everywhere true theory or paradigm that always works, but you can go a long ways with a detachable conclusion.
Thank you for that. Since most of you are eating, maybe I will pose the next question. One of the questions raised from the panel was wondering whether we will be fed. I will ask one more question, and then class will be recessed, and we can go to lunch. Both of you, in your work, have treated law, crime, and deviance as inextricably linked. Clearly, Bill Chambliss in his work sees crime as defined by law. You can't talk about one without the other. In Art Stinchcom's work on rebellion in a high school or crime and punishment, law, regulation, norms, informal norms, and deviance occur together. Yet we now have two sections in the American Sociological Association. We have a section on crime, law, and deviance. We have a section on the sociology of law. So perhaps I could ask you to reflect briefly, since I know you're both hungry, on what you think the field of the sociology of law can bring to an understanding of broader questions about crime and deviance. So,
well, there's great difficulty justifying any intellectual boundaries. It seems to me that you're very likely to find out the best new questions to ask by going nearer to your sister disciplines, to going on nearer to political science or economics or history or whatnot in our cases, or over into the humanities, and trying to figure out how to deal with the fact that all these brilliant people over there in political science have figured out that something is really important, and we never thought of that. And but if it's true in political science, it's got to be true in sociology as well, and consequently, we should be out there trying to do that. And so, I think I found out about something about social organizations by studying deviance in a high school, and the high school was trying to make these people study, but it wasn't providing them with any future that would be benefited with by their studying harder, and that problem was concentrated among young men. And I think it still is in the United States. It isn't nearly as much in Norway. So.
Well, I think that I agree with Art. There shouldn't be these disciplinary boundaries in the first place, but it's unrealistic to suppose there won't be. And I think it's extremely valuable that the two committees are meeting at the same time and having this time to talk about it. I don't think you can have a study of deviance or crime without having a study of the law that defines the acts of deviant or crime. So I think that they're inextricably connected together. On the other hand, there are whole branches of each that don't necessarily reflect upon one another. And there are studies in the sociology of law that have very little to do with deviance. And there's a lot of studies in criminology that just assume the law is a given and assume that people who violate the law are therefore uniformly of some category that is the same. And that kind of unawareness of the interdisciplinary nature of the study of crime and deviance, it seems to me, is a great shortcoming of the sociology of crime or the sociology of deviance. So to the degree that there is an intermixture, an interplay, an interaction between the sociology of law and the study of crime and deviance, I think both fields benefit tremendously. But I don't think that it's necessary to say that they are the same. This afternoon I went to a paper on globalization and world economies and unionization and the struggle of workers in other parts of the world to form union. All of that's the sociology of law. And in some ways that should be integrated into our study of the sociology of law. But I doubt that many sociologists of law were at that session because it's defined as something that goes on under globalization or under a different category. So it's a paradox, it's a contradiction, and it's not one we can easily avoid. There's always a contradiction between splitting disciplines up so that they can have a concentrated effort, and at the same time realizing that those are totally arbitrary splits, that they shouldn't exist. And so what we need to do is constantly be aware of what people are doing in other disciplines, and certainly between the sociology of law and crime and delinquency, or the deviance, there should be almost no difference whatsoever.
I'd like to modify what I said by an observation by Randall Collins, that you can really only think about 5 ideas